Welcome back to the Clinic Scale podcast, the show where we uncover what it really takes to build a chiropractic clinic that doesn't just pay the bills, but creates impact, builds freedom, and supports your bigger vision as a clinic owner. Today's guest is a name many of you will already know, but this conversation is going to go deeper than you've ever heard before. Dr. Laurence Tham is a globally recognized chiropractic business coach and chair of Tiger 21, Portugal and Global Groups, the world's leading peer network for ultra-high net worth entrepreneurs. After building one of Australia's top chiropractic businesses, he has spent the past decade helping practitioners scale beyond 7 figures into profit and freedom practices. Today, he's at the forefront of integrating AI and technology to future-proof healthcare businesses and accelerate growth. He's been a clinic owner, he's helped new grads hit 200 visits plus a week, he's built movements, not just methods, and he's got bold ideas about where this profession is heading next. So, if you're ready to think bigger, grow with clarity, and build something that lasts, this one's for you. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's dive in with Dr. Laurence Tham. So Dr. Laurence, great to have you on the podcast today.
Such a great opportunity to be able to speak to you and also to your audience. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, let's start right where you are now. Before the podcast, I asked you what's your biggest business challenge at the moment, and you mentioned marketing, which is really interesting because that's one of the things you're known for teaching so well. And I understand that, marketing has changed so much, even the time that I've been a business owner and been a coach. So I get where you're coming from, but what is it that's shifting for you in that area right now? Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that if you think about chiropractic is the art, science, and philosophy, right? And if we take those three triunes, I think that applies directly to marketing. Marketing is a science. We can probably follow certain steps and make it work, but it's just as much as a art when it comes to applying marketing. And the art is something that you constantly have to change and adapt and always want to improve on. And so I write marketing is because I think marketing is always a challenge. I don't care if you are the best at marketing. I feel like if you feel like you're best at anything, that's where you lose out. And marketing is such an important element for our profession and even for any business owner, simply for the fact that marketing is, how I define marketing is about educating someone, a prospect in our case, closer to a buying decision. It's not about sales, it's about education. And when you think about marketing in that realm, is that we're trying to educate people, whoever it is, people who know you, people who don't know you. And when you learn to educate people, what you happening seeing this in this world right now is that here's the challenge, here's the rub, right? The challenge is we are living in a society where it's so hard to get people's attention. I was just in New York City maybe 2 weeks ago, and I walked to Times Square. It's the first time my family ever been to Times Square, or actually New York for that matter. And it's quite overwhelming. If you ever been to Times Square, or people who've gone to London, similar aspect, right? When you walk into that square where you see billboards everywhere, everything is just bright and it's loud, it's in your face. And you almost, when you stand there, you just don't know where to look, right? The signs are everywhere, lights are trying to grab your attention. And that's the challenge. That's exactly how we are in society at the moment. Everyone's gravitating your attention, whether it be TikTok, whether it be Instagram, whether it be Facebook, whether it be LinkedIn or any video or YouTube, they're all grabbing your attention at any given moment because we have a device in our hands that has access to information 24/7 whenever you want. And every company in the world, not just chiropractors, not health practitioners, everyone is grabbing everyone's attention. And so when everybody's trying to do that, how on earth are you, or in this case, a practitioner in your community who's trying to help people, going to grab that attention that's going to be better than YouTube video, better than an Instagram video or influencer? And that's the challenge, and that's the rub. And so what we have to do is, how do we shorten, right, with the shortened attention span, how do we send a message that they actually gravitate to and care about enough to pay longer attention to you? And if we can't, remember, if marketing is educating someone, if we can't get their attention, how are we ever going to be able to educate them? And so that's the challenge. And I feel like, I'll say one more thing with that, which is, as a practice owner, right? As a chiropractor 20 plus years ago when I first graduated, you had to become a great chiropractor. If you're a great adjuster, if you're a good communicator, you do quite well. The problem nowadays is that You have to be a business owner. You have to be a social media marketing expert. You have to be an HR manager who run your clinic and hire and do all the CAs and everything. And you also have to be an accountant, profiting and budgeting. And you have to do all of that. And every one of those fields are changing. So we're wearing multiple hats, not learning to delegate. And so therefore we make our lives harder by trying to do everything, and we're never good at everything. Can you imagine, like before, where we just had to be a great technician? Now we have to do everything, and it becomes overwhelming, and I think becomes very challenging.
Yeah, I hear you so much on that. And it's particularly about the hats. And I've spoken about this on my previous episodes. So if you're a clinic owner trying to wear multiple hats, eventually some of those hats are going to fall off. And another analogy is like you're working in a circus and you're spinning lots of plates. And eventually, if you keep spinning that plate, this plate is going to maybe fall off, and vice versa. So all that ends up happening is you've got loads of crashing plates because you don't know what to focus on. And that's where building a team is so important. But going back to one of your other points about what's changed with marketing, a few things there. I mean, Russell Brunson is one of my mentors, and he says that marketing is the engine that fuels your mission. So do you feel like the profession's attention has changed as well as the clients' or prospects' attentions have changed? And like we now need new ways to connect with people too, right? So do you think the profession is aware of this change yet, or are we way behind?
My analysis of the profession is this: is that there's always going to be, if you take a group of 1,000 people, there's always going to be a percentage of people who are first time movers, or like they're first movers. They would just gravitate to check out the new thing, and they're going to implement it straight away. And then on the other end, there's always going to be the laggards, the people who will never change, and no matter how many years, they're probably still on a flip phone, right? And then everybody's sort of somewhat in the middle. The problem with our profession is this: is that what we tend to do is that we got into this profession because we care and we care about people, and we want to help people. Most of us, if I asked, 1,000 chiropractors, I guarantee you about 900 plus of those chiropractors are going to say that they got into this profession because they truly want to help people. Now, the problem is, though, is that, like I said, you have to wear many different hats. And because they're not an expert in any of those areas, we tend to outsource it to others, or you try to just copy and paste someone else what you see success. Now, who they copy are usually the people who are the first movers, who tend to just find the latest trend and put themselves out there. The problem with that, though, however, I find that a lot of practitioners are not really thinking beyond their own practice and their own business. For me, it's really important when it comes to practice is that we are not just representing your own brand. You're not representing you as a chiropractor in your community. You're also representing the profession. Now, maybe you can call me old school and an old way of thinking, but that's how I feel, because every action that you take as a chiropractor reflects directly to the profession worldwide. And we've seen this happen over the last 10 to 20 years. When a chiropractor does something, right, perceived in the public as being negative, and the news picks up on it, it affects all of us. And that's what I mean, that your action as a chiropractor does and will affect the entire profession. And I think that sometimes we need to think about that. So what does that mean? Well, I need you to think about, when it comes to practice and advertising and marketing, I think you also need to think beyond just your practice, that it can influence how people see and perceive us, right? So sometimes some chiropractors are going to go for the likes. They're going to go for the engagement and the views. But will it actually make an impact and education to the public about chiropractic? I don't know. I think sometimes it does more harm than good. And that's the fine line that we need to kind of consider about when it comes to marketing in our profession. I feel like we are somewhat behind. And I think that we're in a place where we're going to be challenged, especially with AI, because we're going to put out a lot of AI slop that could be problematic.
It's interesting. The first thing I thought about there was you. I always tell my team not to look sideways. I said, don't worry about what other clinics are doing, whether that's physios, osteos, or even chiropractic clinics. Let's just focus on what we're doing and how we get our results and how we can best serve our clients. But you're almost saying the opposite of saying, actually, with the way that we're portraying ourselves on social media, we need to be thinking about the other clinics and the profession as a whole. But it's interesting because there are people in this space that have kind of given up with the whole chiropractic thing and have gone down the route of calling themselves spinologists. And that's something that came to my mind when you were saying, hey, we need to kind of work together here. And some of the things we're doing could be damaging for the profession. But, we've got chiropractors that have given up with the whole chiropractic and have just called themselves spinologists. What's your viewpoint on that?
Okay. So, regards to that, I don't actually have an opinion on that because I can see both sides of the story.
Yeah.
And I literally just came back from Germany teaching a day and a half workshop. And, in Germany, I didn't know this until I went there. There's quite a big of a difference in terms of chiropractors, like officially certified chiropractors, but there's also I can't remember the exact terminology, but there's also chiropractors that sort of been grandfathered in. And there's sort of that split. And listen, when I go back to, back when I graduated in 2002, there was always this split between vitalism versus evidence-based, right? So there's that challenge, and it hasn't changed in 25 years, and it's not going to change anytime soon. But what's interesting, let's kind of apply it to general population at the moment. There was such a conflict, and I'm gonna go, where on earth is there a profession that has this type of conflict? That there's always like this such a different opinions around one particular profession. I thought we were the only ones. But if you notice now, 25 years later, if you look at the general population now, you're in the UK, you look at the States, you look at Canada, you look at Australia, like just in the last few recent weeks, there is such a debate in terms of politics, in terms of what side is right or wrong. And you can see the destruction of what it does to society, right? I'm sure, let's put the facts where facts is that the news doesn't help, right? The news are obviously going to push their agenda. Like this is the channels going to push their agenda, what they want the population to see. However, it doesn't take away though. There's this conflict between, we'll call it left versus right or one side versus another. And I'm not taking sides here. I'm just observing and how destructive that is for the average person to kind of think, well, who's right, who's wrong, and they don't know. But when we as profession can't come together or come to some agreement, well, guess what? The public who we serve are not going to know. If we can't decide on what's right, the public is going to perceive us as like the profession doesn't have their crap together. So therefore, maybe we'll try something else. And that's my fear for chiropractic. I
Why do you
fear
think
that
why do you think that's happened? Lawrence? Like, why do you think we are so divided? Is it purely philosophy, or do you think there's other players here that are trying to create controversy in our own profession? So obviously, I'm talking, big pharma here. Is there other things at play here that are trying to cause such controversy amongst ourselves?
you mean in the profession?
Yeah, and the profession and like external influences outside of the profession. Do you think that has an influence?
I think there's always there's multiple I don't think there's one particular thing. Like it's not going to be one. I'm not saying I don't believe that pharmacy or big pharma is the only thing or is the thing. I think there's multiple things. There's ego, right? In our profession, there's a lot of ego in itself. Like no matter where you go, whichever country, whichever part of the world you go to, I've been speaking a lot to various chiropractors from all around the world, and you can see it. You can see it within our speakers and also in the politics within chiropractic. I think one is human nature. So what I'm putting it down to is human nature, right? The human nature of politics, human natures of ego, and and you can see this, and it's so old. I mean, the debates about which technique is better than another. So just in that alone is splitting up the profession. So I think a lot of ego wanting to, because we're still a young profession. If you really think about it, I think we're 130 years old this year. And the reality of that is that it's really kind of forcing ourselves to grow up. And it's really difficult for us to have those coming together when where everybody's still trying to take claims, and we're also running by professions. The profession is run by individuals just trying to survive. They're just trying to survive in their own communities and try to be better. And so therefore, like there's not only are you dealing with the internal conflict of helping, how do I stand out in my community? Like if they can't, here's one take, right? If our individual chiropractors struggles to win over people in their own community because they're fighting against, I don't know, medical doctors and naturopaths and everybody else, they don't have the energy to be able to fight the bigger fight amongst our profession and everybody else. So I think that's really important for, your podcast here talking about helping clinics scale. If we don't help the individual chiropractors to be better and to help better in their own individual communities, they're not going to be the leaders to help this profession in the future. We got to
What's
get people out of
missing? So what's missing there, Lawrence? It sounds like we are so divided. From what I'm hearing from you, is you're saying we're so divided because we can't agree on our own philosophies, our own techniques. So what is it that the profession needs?
profession needs to stop. Okay, so on a higher level, profession needs to stop talking down to each other. The profession needs to accept that there are different versions of chiropractic, and there's going to be different chiropractors with different techniques and different philosophies, in my opinion, and that not one philosophy or one way of doing things is the right way. I think we need to accept that there is different types of people in this world, and the people that we attract are going to be aligned to who we fundamentally are, rather than talking down to our profession to or other practitioners or colleagues to say, hey, they don't do this or they don't do that, and we'll call names of each other. Rather than putting that energy towards each other, let's start to kind of come together and figure out what do we actually have in common, right? And the one thing that I hope that we have in common is that with the adjustment, right? And that we actually adjust, we influence the nervous system and start with some basic fundamentals. We can kind of name call others, and sure, some people are going to be more specific in certain realms, but just let that be, because there's specialists in every areas. And when you are, I think, great at what you do, you're going to attract those clients. Can't attract everybody. If I was in practice, I can't attract everybody. People who are going to come to me are the people who are aligned and attracted to what I do. And if they don't, they're going to go to, I hope, to another chiropractor that is more in line with them. But right now it feels like, hey, if you don't believe in my thing, then therefore you shouldn't even try chiropractic. That's terrible for the profession overall.
Yeah, yeah, we've looked at this amongst just in Dorset. I've spoken to other practice owners, and we said, how can we work together here? So we're always like fighting each other for new patients on social media, and all it's doing is driving up the cost per lead. Everything's just getting more expensive as business owners here. Have you ever tried to work with other local chiropractors when you were running practices? Did you ever try and bring like the local chiropractic community together to try and work on creating a movement in that local community?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I worked in a group practice, so obviously that helps. When I was in Australia practicing, I often used to get together. We used to get together to host events, for example, and we would get, I used to be in the north of the river. We used to get chiropractors from the south of the river and the east of the river and to the west side, and come together to run expos together, as an example. I think that's important because it's not about, see, when I did, like, say, spinal screens back in the day, or when I used to go out and talk, it was never about me. It was always about the profession. And for me, it was always about how do I educate, clients or prospects or patients about the benefits of chiropractic. If you happen to be in my area and you're willing to come to where I am, great. But if you're not, let me refer you, and I'll go out of my way to find, okay, where do you live? Let me find the best chiropractor I feel in your area that I can refer you to. I had tons of people who used to come traveling, through, maybe in town, or maybe just happen to see me. And my job was to kind of educate, because you never know who you're going to meet. And a perfect example is, I remember one time, I used to get these referrals from, a town that was maybe, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours away. And I couldn't figure out why this town. And it was really interesting. And I was like, where are they coming from? And so finally I asked the question, I'm like, who's referring you to? There was at least like 4 or 5 people from this town that was like an hour and a half away. And he goes, oh, it was this person in the post office. I'm like, who in the post office? And so when I dig deeper and ask these people, this person is someone I've never met. They've never seen me, but they just heard something because I maybe adjusted someone who was traveling through, and they told them, like, this is a great chiropractor. And they go, anytime you're in Perth, or, go see this person. I would use, like, honestly, it's no joke. I had like 4 or 5 referrals from someone working in the post office, who I still don't know to this day who it was. But I think that's the power of what, BJ Palmer talked about, is that you never know, what you say can influence someone else tomorrow or change their life. Not verbatim, but that's like that. We all know that to be true. And I think But that's hard for us to think that way when we're kind of in survival or lack mentality. And if we think that's the whole point around what philosophy is, that we got to think bigger than beyond ourselves. And that's why I mean, when I started off the conversation today, it's like we have to think about our profession. We got to think about every action that we do does have an impact. No matter how small your practice is, no matter how large, you have an ability to influence someone's thought around chiropractic, of course, your practice, and that person will tell someone else. And my role in practice was just to teach people so that they can make a decision for themselves whether chiropractic is right for them.
Yeah, totally. And I can definitely relate to that. We're quite well known for spinal screenings. I don't think any clinic in the country does more screenings than we've done. Um, so we're doing big events every week at the moment. So it's quite intense, but we've got a big team that we can do that. So yeah, it's about trying to make an impact. So what I'm hearing from you is about trying to make an impact as a profession. So not just going to a screening to attract your own patients, but also saying, I'm here to help people. And therefore, if someone comes that isn't local to me, I'm going to refer them to someone that can help them where they live. Is
Yeah,
that what you're
your representation, like you're
saying?
representing the profession every time you step out. And I think this is the hard part for people to. I'm not, okay. Let me put it this way: when you sign up to be a chiropractor, you didn't sign up for this. I understand, but you also have to realize, and I used to talk to a lot of students about this, is that your social media account is no longer just about you. It is about, it's got to be more than you. And I always talk to, this is when, I was talking to the students themselves, when you're young, in your early 20s, you're going to post whatever stuff, right? But at some point or another, you'll have to know that you're coming down. You're going to become a professional. And the professional, people are going to find you, right? And this is going back like 15 years ago, right? People are going to find you. They can go and search for you and they're going to see stuff, whether it be, them drinking or partying and stuff. I go, but you represent that. And not only are you representing yourself, you got to think about the representation to the profession itself. So when you go and act accordingly and say, I am a chiropractor, you're basically representing this whole entire profession. Now, some people are going, I don't want that responsibility. I get it. I get you don't want the responsibility, but that's the responsibility of you having a name, doctor in front of your name, and chiropractor at the end of your name, right? And
Mm,
whether you like it
yeah.
or not, we have to represent. It's no different than, I represent my family name, right? Or I represent, and I didn't ask for that, but that is part of it. And I think as collective, I think it's important that we recognize that we represent this profession. And if we all did that, I mean, even a majority of us did that, this profession would be so much stronger. But right now we're fragmented. Everybody's doing their own thing. And I do worry about the future of chiropractic.
Yep, I think about this a lot, and I think about how can I, as an individual with so much influence, especially in the UK, how can I bring the people together again? How can I bring chiropractors together? What will it take to do that? And if we can do that, let's dominate the healthcare industry in the UK, if not globally, but let's start here. I know you've been based in a few places around the world, and it's something I think about regularly. I mean, there's only 3,000 chiropractors or so in the UK, so there's not many of us. I know the majority are in the US or Canada, but I think there is something coming, and I would love to be a major part of that. If we could create some kind of movement that just brings us all together again, that would be, if I could just achieve that in my career, I'd be a happy guy. So I want to move on, Laurence, to your business, line and amplify. What exactly is a line and amplify all about? And sort of what are the key pillars and how do chiropractors evolve through that process? And is it open to people outside of chiropractic?
So Alana Amplify, the name comes from this core concept. Okay. I think in order for us, my goal is to help people have profitable practices and have a freedom practice. And, to tie in from what we just discussed, I think to move forward, how we're going to make this profession better is to have individual chiropractors be more profitable and have more freedom in their life. Why do I feel that way? Is because profit seems like such a bad thing, but profit just means an exchange of values that you're now creating results for your community and they're paying you in return in terms of financial gains, which allows you to give back or give to the profession, your time and energy. And I think that's the one way to do it. So align and amplify is because of two things. Number one, let's start with the align. I said earlier, what the most important thing for us is to respect the individual principles and philosophy of each individual chiropractor. And I find that most chiropractors tend to go to seminars, go to conferences, listens to a speaker and just go, wow, like that's great. I want to be like X. And the challenge, of course, is to recognize is that that person is their own uniqueness. And if you try to copy that, if you try to copy what I do, it's not going to work as well as you think. Majority of the people, maybe 10% would, but that's not going to help. What's going to help is that I rather you build a practice based on who you are. So the first alignment is really about me helping and coaching people to build a practice that is helpful for them, that is aligned with their principles and their values. Number one, because once you do that, right, you now vibrate at a certain frequency. We'll call it 33 hertz. And if you vibrate at 33 hertz and then now you put it out to the world through marketing, social, whatever, or just you telling people, that's the amplification. Then we can figure out, it's like, how do we amplify that frequency out there in the world? And the people who vibrate at 33 hertz will hear you loud and clear and like, wow, this is for me. He or she is for me. People who are 34 or 32, they'll hear you too. But people who are at 72 hertz won't even know you exist. And that is okay, because our practice is not meant for everyone. It's going to be meant for the people you want to attract and you want to, really want to help. And that's why I think sometimes when we do marketing, we go back to our first conversation, people are just putting crap out there, like trying to get everyone with a spine. Your messaging is so lost when it comes to that, because you're just trying to go for everyone, which is no one, because no one is hearing you loud and clear. What you rather do in marketing is to want to be very specific to the people you want to listen to. And one of the conversations we had together before this podcast was, tell me the audience, right? Tell me your audience of this podcast. Who are they? Let me know, who's listening to this, so that I want to make sure my words and my conversation is geared towards that. Now, if you said this, podcast was for naturopaths, okay, then I'm going to have to shift a little bit to make sure it fits that audience. If you told me it was chiropractors, going to be, if you told me it was just for pregnant moms, okay, then obviously we're going to be having a different conversation right now. And so that's what I think is so important. So align and amplify is really aligning practices to who you are as mentally. Once you've done that, then we can learn how to amplify it through marketing and other social channels.
Yeah, I love the term align as well. It fits so well into chiropractic.
Yeah.
We're looking at that as a framework with clinic scale. It's like, everyone needs to get their business alignment. But yeah, it sounds like a great program. Can you give us some examples of, one or two chiropractors that have gone through the program and experienced a big transformation?
Sure. So one of the key elements of what we do is there's a difference between in the coaching world, at least in chiropractic for sure. There's two types of coaches that I think you need to acknowledge. Number one is that you have the system coaches, right? The practice management, and practice management coaches are the coaches that give you a system, copy it, and you'll be successful. I think for me that's great. It works for some people, but like I said, I think that you need to choose someone who actually coaches you, which means that you actually get someone to listen to your principles and your philosophy, understand you as a person, and more importantly, help you see things you don't want to see, help you hear things you don't want to hear, so you can become the person that you're meant to be. And that's the key. I believe that's what coaching does. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I remember coaching a couple actually, and they came in. I coached the wife first, and she was an associate. The husband was also an associate. And we worked together for a while, just being associates. And let's fast track 2 years later. They started growing from one practice, so they actually bought a practice. Then they grew to 2, then they go to 5. At the moment, 5 years later, I believe I think they're about 25 practices in Australia, probably more now. And I lose count. That's like one of the success stories I've seen is like people. Now, this is not just on me. This is just them having the ambition to grow and scale to help this profession as best as possible. I think that's really important for understand is that it's about helping them align to their passion and purpose of what they want to do, and to help them get there faster, and to ensure that life is moving in the direction that they wanted to have and the impact they want to have. So that is obviously one of those big scale moments, but there's also just stories around where a practice who's been stuck for 10 years or 15 years. I can think of a person who's, just wasn't enjoying life, wasn't enjoying practice, wasn't enjoying, haven't taken a holiday in 5, 10 years or something. I can't remember. It was something ridiculous. And I think for me, I think it's important to recognize that that's not the life you signed up for. The life you signed up for is what's important here is that you signed up for a life that creates happiness, joy, taking care of your patients, but also some sort of freedom that allows you to do the things you want to do. That's what we signed up for. And for me, is helping them gain that perspective that you working yourself to the ground, staying open every single week, thinking that that's actually serving your patients because you're not even taking care of yourself, is sending an incongruency and a wrong message to your clients that that's not the right thing to do. So for me, what I think is important is to find the alignment within yourself, making sure the practice is the how you designed it.
So, Laurence, Alex Hormozy always says the real offer isn't the content, it's the transformation. So, thank you for explaining some of the breakthroughs that you've seen with some of your chiropractors that you've coached previously. But what's the biggest shift you see in chiropractors in general who go through Align and Amplify?
I think you need to understand that what happens is that in the transformation, like anytime I'm coaching or anytime I'm dealing with my clients, whatever results they get, it's great. We can definitely, be thankful for them, and whether it be their biggest week or biggest year or whatever it is. I do find those type of numbers. Obviously, we celebrate them, but they're very temporary. Meaning, like they don't necessarily, like a lot of times, like I'm sure all of us realize is that either one, those numbers are maybe not sustained because you kind of take the foot off the gas, or two, they're aiming for bigger and bigger things. So it was relevant at a certain point, but no longer relevant for you because you're aiming higher. And so what ends up happening is that we get lost in the numbers and we lose ourselves in comparison. And so what I think Alex Hormozy talks about in transformation, the important things I always tell my clients is that it's not so much I celebrate your wins in terms of your numbers, but what I really celebrate more is the person you became because by you achieving that. And that's the essence of this is really important because I think of it like an elastic band. If someone changed and transformed, because in order for them to get those numbers, they had to transform some way. They had to shift something inside of them. And when you shift, it's almost like taking an elastic band and stretching it for long enough where that elastic band now can no longer go back to its original shape. And that is the critical part. When someone is able to transform, you can't go back. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. You are now shaped in a way that you can do this again, even if the numbers fail, because sometimes it's environment that changes, right? Could be affected by, let's say, COVID, right? Those years were detrimental for certain practices because it's just environmental factors that you had no control over. However, if you transformed before that and you changed and who you became from that, you can't put that back. You're not going to go back to who you were. And I think that's what's fundamentally important when it comes to transformation. And so when you think about that part, I think our goal should be about who you become. That is the vital question you should be asking yourself, not so much chasing a number because the numbers are fleeting. It's about who you want to be in order for you to achieve the things you want.
Laurence, I love that analogy. I heard an analogy once similar. So when a mind is stretched to a new idea, it can never be shrunk back to its old dimensions. So whenever I start a new mastermind group, because I always say a coach without a coach isn't a coach. So I always have someone that I'm coaching with. I've just joined another mastermind group recently in the States, actually. And some of the things I've heard about there are just mind-boggling. I think you can sometimes learn more from other industries than you can from our own sometimes, especially when it comes to business coaching. And yeah, I can really relate to what you're saying there. Um, I know you're really into tech and AI like I am, and I really would like to spend some time exploring how, as business owners, and especially within the chiropractic space, we can future-proof our practices with AI. So it sounds like you're ahead of the curve on this one, and you've been very vocal about preparing chiropractors for what's coming next or what's already here. So what changes do you see happening in the next sort of 3 to 5 years, and how can chiropractors actually lead through that shift? So if we're going to dominate
Yeah,
the
actually,
healthcare space, when people have pains and they want to optimize their health, how can we dominate it through AI?
yeah. So it's funny. I just had a friend of mine in Australia. We were just texting back and forth, and that was the exact same question. It's like, what do you think? How's AI going to affect the profession? And my answer to that is that AI won't replace you as a chiropractor yet. Okay, in brackets. And I think that's really important for people to understand, because I know that majority of chiropractors would say that would never happen. Well, never say never, because I think that AI and robots and all of those things are coming faster than you think. And I don't think our brain can comprehend, but it's also, I think, longer than some people think too as well. So it's like that bridge between understanding that, hey, we can't just sit on this. We just can't go, you know what? AI will never replace us. I don't know. I've seen some pretty crazy AI technologies and robots, from a few years ago. So let alone what it's going to be exponentially. And I think that's what human brain can't comprehend, is the exponential growth that AI can get to a point. Now, what I don't think it will replace, again, with the parenthesis of yet, of the human nature of what we do, the communication side, and what we do as as the using our hands, and also the interaction. So that's one. The other side to think of AI, so let's talk about AI though. It won't replace chiropractors yet, but I do think this, and I strongly believe in this, that if the chiropractors do not adapt to AI, they will be in a position where they will feel very, very behind, and they will probably get to a point shortly in the near future where it becomes harder and harder to catch up. So I did a video recently, and I was at a train station. I was in Germany. I was catching the train to the airport. And I thought of this analogy. Was the train was just like opening its doors. It was another train I wasn't supposed to catch. And I was like filming, and I'm like, see that train? That's the AI train right now. Okay. And as the door closed and that train's taking off, and I said, if you don't catch up to that train now, you don't have to enjoy everything about AI. I don't enjoy everything about AI. I mean, for about a year or year and a half, I'm like, I don't want to get on this train. But I also realized that that train is moving whether we like it or not, right? It's just the same thing I tell patients, when patients say, I don't believe in chiropractic. Well, chiropractic works whether you believe it or not. It doesn't really matter. It's like gravity. I don't believe in gravity. Well, it's still there whether you believe it or not. Well, the AI train is leaving, and you have a choice. You have a choice to go, no, I'm not getting on the train. I do not want to believe in it. It scares me, blah, blah, blah. Or you can just get on the train and just kind of ride with it, right? And just use it once in a while and just sort of see where it's going to take you, because at least you're on the train. Because as that train takes off in the terminal, it gets further and further away. And more importantly, it gets faster and faster. And by the time you make a decision to go, maybe I should have listened and maybe I should jump on that train, it's already gone. And now you have to play catch up. You're going to have to try to figure out how to run faster. And guess what? That train is moving so fast. You're going to go, I'm so far behind. And you're going to get to this point and going, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. I'm just going to hire someone else to do it. Does this sound familiar to most people? Yeah, it's called social media, right? Most of us missed that train in 2007 and 2010, 2015. And a lot of you people listening will be going, yeah, there was a moment where I could have gone onto Facebook, or could have gone onto YouTube, or could have, started a podcast, but I didn't. And no, it doesn't mean you can't. It just means that it becomes harder. And because the best of the best are there, and now you're competing against that. And now you're lost in the sea of noise. So all I'm asking is to do something very, very simple for all practitioners. Sign up, or just, it doesn't matter which one you use, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Gronk, whatever. I don't care what you use. But I would encourage you to use that every single day for the smallest things. To be honest with you, I don't know when the last time I actually Googled something. Like literally went to google.com to Google something. If I want information, I'm just going to go to ChatGPT to find it. Find me the closest restaurant, the best restaurant, knowing what you know about me in this neighborhood, because this is the hotel I'm staying at. Or even go, what are the 3 best pizza places I should try in New York City, where I'm living in this hotel? It will give you a way better answer than trying me to Google, look at some reviews and everything else, right? So that's what I mean by using it every day. I've had a conversation with ChatGPT for a 30-minute walk. I remember walking in Miami. I was like, literally just like, well, let's have a conversation about something. It was like, we were chatting about a business idea and just went back and forth and teaching me something. I use ChatGPT pretty much every single day. And I learned something about it. I don't, you thank you for the praise of me. It's like, you saying that I'm behind tech. I think I am behind. Like, I feel so behind, compared to all my friends who are deep into this stuff. I'm like, I don't understand 90% of what they're saying. But the reality is that I'm on the train. At least I feel like I'm on the train, and I'm trying to go, guys, you got to get on, right? Just come with me
Mm.
and let's learn together.
You're on the
I'm hoping
train.
that,
You're on the train, but you're currently
yeah,
sat in economy and not in first class. It's the people in first class are the
yeah. I don't
ones.
even know if I'm in economy yet. So,
Yeah, I totally get that. But this mastermind that I've just joined in the States, some of these guys with the AI, like, these are guys that are shaping the future of AI. They are having direct conversations with ChatGPT about how they can utilize ChatGPT for their AI agents and voice calls, AIs, and linking AI to social media. So if someone comments something, then they'll get an instant DM. It's just crazy how fast this is moving. Just week to week, there's massive shifts. I've never seen something move so quickly. I think this is the only thing that's moved as
yes.
fast as this has been like the discovery of the internet. I think this is like the
Mhm.
new,
And
this is
that's the
the new wave,
challenge.
isn't it?
That's the problem, right? The problem is, again, if we started with the conversation about too many hats, it's another hat now we have to go on, and then that's usually what stops people from taking on board. And listen, I try like you. I mean, every week, if anything, every day seems like there's a new tool, and the problem with that, you just get lost and you don't know. And so, where I'm putting my focus on right now is helping my clients understand, like, there's thousands of tools out there. Guess what? As a practitioner, you don't need all of them. You don't even need 80% of them. You probably don't even need 90% of them. What you need to do is distinctively going, here are the few tools that I should really learn and master and apply back to practice, because there are great tools, but you don't need a lot of them because sometimes they're more applicable to other industries. Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to distill like the best tools and really just trying to teach people to going, hey, this tool will be helpful and here's how you can use it. Right. And I think that's teaching people how to use something is probably right now the most important lesson. And that's what I mean by getting on the train. The train is not about trying to find the next tool. I mean, for some people who are, ahead, they will do that. But honestly, it's about really just focusing on what's the tool that's going to apply to my life, to my practice, to make my life more efficient, my practice more effective, so I can continue doing what I do best, which is adjusting and communicating
So
chiropractic.
making my practice more effective. So I had this conversation with my team, and it was a bit of a touchy topic to bring up with them. So I was like, "Hey, we need to introduce AI. We're looking at AI voice calls," and they're like, "Well, if you introduce that, then what's going to be left for us to do?" And I was like, "Right. Also, I want everyone using AI every day. If there's something you want to ask me, I want you to ask AI first, because AI is way more intelligent than I am, and you can use the right prompts. And if you can't get the answer from AI, then come and ask me, right?" And they're like, "Well, but is this not going to replace our jobs?" I was like, "No, it's not going to replace your jobs. Just like you were saying before, Laurence, about, is this going to replace chiropractors? It's not going to replace your jobs. It's going to make you more effective and more productive. And that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve with it."
What AI is going to do is to help you, if applied appropriately, to make your practice more human. Let me repeat that. AI will make chiropractic practices more human. Here's why. Number one is that it's going to make your CAs, let's call it, your assistants or, whoever is in your team, to be more effective and more efficient. It will replace certain jobs or what they do from a technical perspective to allow them to interact with your patients like a human being. Patients want to deal with a human being. We are craving for it. Society missed out on 4 years or at least 2 years of human interaction. We're craving for that. I don't think as human beings, as a society, we're going to want to be less human. We're going to want to be more human, as at least in majority. And so what we need to do is focus on that. We need to consider, and if you use it appropriately, to make AI help us become more human, more interactive like a human being. And that's what's going to make our practice more personable. And that's what's going to make us more effective as a profession. And I think that's one of the ways in how we can scale to be a stronger profession overall.
Yeah, I'm sure you know who Dr. Brett Jones is. I spoke to Dr. Brett Jones about a month ago, about AI, and I said, "Well, what are your thoughts about AI? What do you think it can't replace?" And he said the one thing that he feels that AI will not be able to replace in the chiropractic space is the human ability to feel, which I found very poignant because there are so many aspects of AI. Even if you have, like you said about your walk and you had that conversation with ChatGPT, I've also done the same. Um, but it's getting more and more intelligent to the fact that it starts joking with you. It can be conflicting. It can debate. So it has almost trained itself, or it's been trained to develop some kind of emotion. But there's a difference
That's where I was going to go with. I'm not sure if I totally agree with that. Again, we'll say, the term that yet, because I do feel that, no pun intended, but I do feel that the AI is going to be able to interact, right? Human to human interactions or feelings, or at least conversation, or at least the perception of human to human interaction. And we can kind of see, really weird cases of, like, especially in the US, where people are marrying their AIs,
I
right?
was just going to
We've
say
seen it. Like,
something
I know
like
it's
that.
kind of like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and in
I know
Asia
it
as
seems like a
well.
joke.
In Japan as well, this is happening. Like the people are more connected to their AI agents than they are to each other.
Yeah, and that's obviously, as a society, we can see where the downward slide of society can be. So the feeling part, I think that can be manufactured. I think they can code it and train it in a way that an AI avatar can actually relate better to a human being than a human being can, because we have, human beings, we all have our own little issues. What I do feel, though, is that what I meant by the human interaction is that we won't have this, right? This is like that human touch um, is going to be harder to mimic, right? Now, again, I've seen robots do like massages on a person, like a four-handed robot, right? Two on the top, two on the bottom of your legs. I mean, I've never experienced it, but I've seen it. I'm like, wow, I think that can I can see the benefit of, like, you being able to control, like, how much depth and how hard and how soft, and that could be a factor.
Hmm.
We talk about feelings. Okay, we find the subluxation and all that stuff. Well, I don't know, like, with the technology, maybe in the near future, say, like, let's call it 5-10 years, can an AI be able to detect them, like, your joints and the mobility and the nervous system, all that thermoscan, EMG, in real time, way better than a human? Maybe. So if that's true, then yeah, that's what I mean by yet. That when that happens, from the chiropractic perspective, from the adjustment point of view, that could be problematic. Now, we're not there yet. I think we're one of the last professions that's going to be replaced, but it's something that's important to think about, because if we don't think in terms of disruption, then we're going to be falling behind of asking ourselves what happened to us. When I'll end with this one point, which is, in the world, we thought AI was going to replace low-end jobs, right? All the tedious, monotonous, automated jobs. But it's not doing that. What it's replacing is actually the white-collar jobs, like the accountants, the consultants, the lawyers, those radiographers. Those are the jobs that they're replacing, which was not expected. Everybody expected this to be replaced. No, they're actually replacing the high-level jobs first, because those are the jobs that cost companies way more money, right? And that's the hard part. So this is where we got to think about, you might not think you're going to be replaced, but you can't say never. We don't know what the future is holding. No one knows. I don't care no matter what expert you speak to, no one really knows. So we're all just making predictions. But while we're making predictions, the train is moving. So get on, figure it out, and be on the ride, rather than hoping and praying that this train crashes, which I
Absolutely.
don't think it's
I
going
mean,
to.
Tony Robbins always says, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So if we're not going to
Well,
be
here's the thing,
using
right?
if we're not going to
It's
be using AI
Yeah.
to amplify our practices, you're going to be left behind, I'm afraid.
Think about chiropractors, right? Our goal as a chiropractor has always been, right, helping, adjusting a human being so that they can adapt to the environment around them. Yet chiropractors don't do that for their own life and their own practices. We're not adapting to our environment when we don't adopt to these tools and tech that's available to us. That's what we should be doing. That's what life is about. It's about adapting to the environment, because the environment doesn't care about you. The environment is moving whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it's almost like some of these chiropractic business owners need their own business adjustment, right?
Absolutely. They need to get unsubluxated. They need to, really start getting connected to the world and start moving towards what's happening and where it's going to be.
Well, chiropractic means done by hand, right? So you can't replace, although you're saying with these massage robots, maybe you can.
Who knows?
You know, it's really interesting. In the 1900 and something, I was researching a few years ago the SAM machine, and what came up was not the traditional SAM machine checking the posture and the weight. What actually came up was specific adjusting machine. And I started reading into it. I was like, at some point in the 1900s, they started to try and replace chiropractors with a specific adjusting machine. I don't know what happened to
Interesting.
it, but it's so interesting that we've been trying to replace ourselves for many years already, but no one succeeded. You can't replace the done by hand.
Well,
The human element of touch, I don't think you can replace that.
yeah,
We'll
I mean,
see. We'll find out.
that's the one thing that we're hanging on to.
Yeah,
But I think we also got to be cautious. What if that doesn't happen? Like, what
absolutely.
if it does happen? And then we got to think about, okay, about a profession, where it's going to go. And, I think the future of chiropractic as a profession will not be led by chiropractors. The future of our profession in chiropractic will be led by leaders. And leaders in this profession is what we need to grow. And in order for you to be a leader, you need to have a successful practice, because they will free up the time to allow you to become a leader. And that's what's going to happen. Leaders themselves, I don't think will be the future. I do believe that the future of the profession rests and solely on the leaders of this profession.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's one of my passions behind Clinic Scale is like, how can we get chiropractors scaling their clinics to 7 figures plus so they are not chained to the bench anymore? Because I know what that feels like, being so reliant on your own adjusting skills, not seeing a way out. And I speak to chiropractors every single day about this. It's like, you don't have to be in those golden handcuffs, if you like to put it that way. I have friends that all over the world practicing chiropractic, and they're like, I love what I do, but I just don't want to be chained to the bench to have to do it. I want to do it out of choice. And it is possible. You've just got to find the right coach, right? Speaking about
That's freedom.
coaches,
That's what we all crave for.
yeah, absolutely. So we all secretly want to be led to. So you've built something more than a coaching program. You've built a tribe. How did you create such a strong coaching community inside Align and Amplify?
I think one of the most important things is that I attract certain people that resonate with my message, resonate about, what they really want to try to build. I attract people who want to scale, but they want to scale it appropriately. That it's not going to interfere their philosophy or their principles. They're not going to scale just because they want more money. They're not going to scale just because to do things that are not aligned with who they are as a person. And for me, it's that when you speak in those terms, and who I am here on the podcast or on stage is who I am in public, and I hope that people see me for that way. And the reality is that I'm not a pushy kind of person. I built a practice when I was in practice where people came to me. I had a practice. Funny, you started the conversation with marketing. My practice was built not on marketing. Well, I guess it is marketing when you're just, you're talking about educating people and brands, but I never did any like ads or anything else. And my practice was 94.7% on referrals. So, I only had like 6% of the people that came in that was walk-bys or whatever, but everybody else was referred. And I did that for years. And I feel like why that is not because I was pushy, not because I forced any care. I always, I just finished a seminar and a workshop in Germany, and I talked about conversion and retention. I talk like the main point I want to get across is that you need to learn to be the prize. You need to learn that people are coming to you because you have something that they want. Right. And here's the kicker. It's not about your adjusting skills. It's not about because you can provide results, because that's the minimum standard is expected by your patients. Just because I'm a great adjuster or I think I'm a better adjuster than anybody else. Okay, great in your mind, but that's what they expect. Like that doesn't distinguish you from all the other chiropractors around your neighborhood or any other practitioner. Everybody goes to X doctor or business. They expect a result. So you can't just say, I deliver better results. Well, who says? What I think it needs to be distinguished, you got to figure out what's your personal brand, what do you stand for, who do I attract, and how do I talk to more to those people that are aligned with how I think. And again, it goes back to alignment. If you don't know who you are and who you're trying to serve, it becomes very difficult. And so you talked about, how I built this tribe of people is because I feel like we take time away. We go away on retreats. I'm doing one in Bali, and we're spending all this time on, focused on AI this time. And we do this because I want you to take away from your environment. I want you to take you away from your regular, day-to-day life, and be in an environment surrounded by other people, masterminding with other great practitioners to really figure out is what you're doing currently on the path of what you really want to achieve? And if it's not, let's take the time to change course. It doesn't have to change like 180 degrees or 90 degrees. Sometimes it's just like 5 degrees. And that 5 degrees, a year or 10 years down the road, is going to be a massive difference in who you are. And I think that's important. We need to stop and reflect once in a while to say, is the direction where I'm going helpful?
So you said you focused a lot on conversion and retention. So we have a framework within Clinic Scale. So we call it CARS. So C is conversion,
Mm-hmm.
A is attraction, R is retention, and S is the scale. So you scale from there. I've been following you on social media for a while, and I know which one you try and hammer home a lot. And I see a lot of talk about retention. But Laurence, I'm a chiropractor in Christchurch in a very competitive area. Isn't attraction the most important thing, bringing on more and more new clients, or is it about just keeping those clients? What's your point on what's your take on that?
I think the biggest mistake in this profession is that they focus too much on attraction. And I'm not saying attraction is not important. Like your cars the way you describe cars, and it's the same thing for what I teach people. The reality is this: attraction is important. We started this whole conversation around marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It is very, very important for our profession and for your business. Without it, it's impossible to survive. Okay, so let's just get that off the table. But is it the most important or the first thing you should fix? Absolutely not. Here's why. If you attract 100 patients into your practice, but you have a terrible conversion system or a terrible conversion conversation and communication or a terrible conversion impression on your prospect, it's never going to last. And so now it goes from 100 to 200 patients. Let's say you have attraction because you're able to double your spend. Okay, well, you're still converting at the same rate. We'll call that, say, 20%. Well, what if we fixed your conversion from 20% to 30%? Right? We're not even changing that much, but let's go from 20 to 30. All of a sudden, each person you attract now has a 50% rate, better conversion rate, which means all of a sudden your profitability in your practice increases, your retention increases because you're converting better. So for me, if I was to advise any practice to really look at, is you got to fix your conversion and you got to fix your ability to retain clients first before you look at your attraction. Because if you have a terrible conversion and terrible retention, I don't care how, you're going to just waste your money on attraction. If you want to be efficient with your money on attraction, then fix your conversion retention. The only exception, I would say, to this rule is that if you're starting out, you're starting from scratch. Okay? If you're seeing less than 100 patients a week, you need to do all three all the time until you don't need to do the attraction as much and fix your conversion, improve your conversion and retention. But from biggest bang for buck in terms of time, energy, and resources, focusing on your conversion, focusing on your retention will by far exceed your ability to get to a profitable practice and freedom practice by a huge margin. I think, but unfortunately, it's not sexy. It's not because you have to do the things you don't want to do, right? It's doing all the things is that takes energy. Yeah, that's the point. In order to retain clients, you actually have to create experiences that wow people. You have to change. If you look at change a different profession, right? Let's look at if you went to any city. Let's go to London. If we went to London and go, what are the top bakeries in London? If you had to show me, I guarantee you it's not because they got great products, because they have consistently great products, right? And every time I go there, it is absolutely amazing. No matter what month I try or what time, it is great. And they got consistently great things, and there's lineup out the door. Those people don't need to do much marketing because other people are marketing for them, right? But if you're new, sure, a new bakery, you're going to have to put it out there. And so that's the same analogy when it comes to practice, that if you don't create great results, a great experience, I want to say great experience for your clients, then people are not talking about you. And Seth Godin always talks about being remarkable.
if you're not great at being remarkable, you're nothing to know. There's people are not going to remark about you. And I think that's what's ultimately what we got to focus on.
Yeah. What you're saying there, it reminded me of one of my first ever business mentors in the chiropractic space was Dr. Ryan Ryder. And he always said to me that marketing will only solve problems short term. So you can spend loads and loads of marketing getting loads of new patients, but if you can't retain them and you can't convert them, it's going to be a tough career. Which I think a lot of business owners will find out the hard way, because you can put thousands into Facebook ads and you will get patients from it. But then you've got to look at your, ad spend, you've got to look at your profit and loss and make sure those numbers work. Really hear you on that retention part, but I think still, I don't know what is even considered good retention anymore, because I have in the same practice, in my practice in Christchurch, in the same practice we have chiropractors with PVAs of 10 and then chiropractors with PVAs of 30, and the only thing that separates them is a wall. So you can have all of these retention strategies and things that happen externally. So like, hey, if you're a member of our clinic, you'll get a discount off at this local business. Hey, if you're a member and you're paying via direct debit, you will get a bonus point. And once you get 18 points, you get this free treatment. But ultimately, what I found is it really just depends on the chiropractor. And I want to get your take on this. Is it these extra perks that we have in our practices, or is it all down to creating that wow experience on the bench and communicating?
No, I think
what is it?
No, I think we're, everything you just mentioned are very tactical applications. And I think let's focus on 4 key pillars. Okay. So 4 key pillars for better retention is, number 1 is personality. Okay. So let's we don't have time to go through every one, but let's just go, at least we'll go through every one, but just quickly outline what it is. Personality is like, well, you got to think about who retains the most in any business. It's going to be the personality, meaning a person is that they're not a pushy person. No one wants to be part of a business or part of something that is pushy. What you want is you want not from pushy salesperson, you want an authority. Someone who's an authority has got certainty, has got confidence, right? Someone who wants to be part of that particular tribe because they know what they're talking about. That authority, that personality, and not being authoritative, but someone who's an authority, someone they can trust, right? With their health, someone they can trust in terms of that their advice is sound and true. They don't have to be loud. They just got to be confident and certain about what they do. That personality is going to attract and retain those clients because you become the person that they trust when it comes to your child's health, my health, and the first person I call when it comes to something wrong with my whole overall health. That's an authority. So that's the personality. If you work on that alone, that's going to increase your retention. Number 2, it's the product. In this case, it's chiropractic. It's what we offer, the service. And the product isn't just the adjustment, right? The product is the whole package of how we deliver it, right? In terms of, it may be your technique. It may be the style or your practice. And product means also not just the adjustment, but maybe your practice, right? Your staff, how friendly they are. I've always created my practice based to be the third place, somewhere between work and home. That comes from the concept from Starbucks, is that, I want people to go before they go to work from home, they come to me to get adjusted, or on the way back from work, before they go home, they come to me from the practice. So the product was creating that product to allow that they feel welcome. They feel like they're part of a team or part of a tribe because we hear them. The third element is the process. The process is, what are the elements in the system to ensure that you actually have great retention system? How often are you educating your patients between the adjustments? Right? How often are you communicating to them? How much videos or emails are you sending to them? How much are they thinking about you around beyond chiropractic, about health and wellness? If that's what you're preaching, if you're talking about health and wellness, what are you talking about, and how can you help them elevate towards a better wellness life or a health and wellness life? The challenge here, the process is that it's got to create, you got to have system. It can't feel clunky. Right? It can't be like all over the place. It's got to feel natural. It's got to feel logical for someone to kind of comprehend, like, that actually makes sense, which means your communications during your report of findings or initial consultation, their day 1 and day 2, needs to be smooth, and it needs to yeah, that actually makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. Oh, that totally makes sense. Yes, I'll take up, what you have. And the last one is proposition. Your proposition, which is your value proposition, needs to be very clear and concise. That is something that's valuable to them, not for you as a chiropractor. We already get it. If we hang around with a group of chiropractors, of course we get the value proposition, right? But I guarantee you, when you go to your mastermind in the US, I assume it's not chiropractors. And if it's not chiropractors, I guarantee you, your value proposition of what you feel about chiropractic is not going to be welcomed or in sync with that group versus if you went to a seminar or a conference in chiropractic. Why? Because their value proposition for what they believe in and what you do isn't the same. And so therefore what we got to do is consciously being wowing the patient to go and match and communicate that proposition of what we offer needs to benefit overall to their desire.
I love that. What a great framework for attention. I hope you're making notes on this. That's such valuable content, and we always try and hammer this home as well with Clinic Scales. Like, retention is the key to success. If we all just kept 100 of our clients that came into the practice, we'd have much happier practices. And then we wouldn't be fighting for new patients all the time. We wouldn't see cost per acquisition going up all the time. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. But let's zoom out now. What's next for Align and Amplify? Where do you see your role and the profession's direction in the next sort of 5 years?
Well, my role it goes with my interest. I kind of go like, what am I interested in right now? And where do I want to take, where do I want to live and sort of where I want to see myself. And for me right now, it's like, I do have a massive interest in AI. And, currently I'm working on building an AI, software program to go, how do we help coach practices and, utilize some of these tools, but I don't know. I know that practitioners are going to have struggled to kind of piece everything together. I want to create a software program where it tells you based on your numbers to going, hey, things are not working. Like your new patients are kind of dropping here. Maybe we should activate this campaign if you want to, or maybe notice that people are dropping off early, or maybe not booking your appointments. Your retention's kind of lacking. Maybe we should activate this education piece to these people, for the CrossFitters. Let's send out these emails or these SMSs, or maybe you notice that people are, haven't been in your practice after 90 days. And we can set an automated system that allows people to, get back to them and go, hey, how's it going? We do have these systems, but it's done by humans, which means we're relying on humans remembering. Now, we all have, I'm sure you all say, like, my system, my team is really trained. They know this, but they're humans. I guarantee you they're forgotten. Or maybe you didn't create a system at all. We can actually automate all of these things now in a way that you don't even know it's actually happening. And this is what I feel like we're trying to make it more human by removing all these automations and stuff that doesn't require a human to do, so that we can still continue to do the things that we do best within that. So I feel like for me, it's about how do I help integrate practices currently with AI technology that helps them be more efficient in the world, help them be more effective in what they do, to mostly focus in on making sure their practices are streamlined so they can actually do more chiropractic and educate more chiropractic to the patients.
Love that. So it's all about, we always preach about systems, processes, softwares, and then having the ability to scale beyond that once you've got the automations in place. But I think by the sounds of things, you're creating something that's going to create such a big impact for this profession. And I'm sure other professions could use this as well. So what's next then? So Stephen Bartlett talks about building legacy through consistent long-term action. Laurence, what is it that you want to be remembered for, not just in your content, but through the chiropractors you helped over the years? What is it you're hoping to leave behind in that legacy?
Yeah, like I'm getting to this age of mine, like, I'm 50 years old this year. And it's one of those things that I really don't think too much about legacy anymore, because I feel like I don't control that. I don't control how people think about me. I don't control what people think about me and what they will say about me when I die. The reality is that the most important legacy I want to create is actually for my kids, and ensuring that they become really great human beings. And I hope that they do wonderful things for the world. And so I used to think a lot about legacy and what people think about me. I think less and less. When I was younger, I do care. But nowadays, I don't care as much, because I feel like, the only thing I remember once someone asked me this, and it's still true to this day. I did think about this about 2 days ago, which was, what I want people to think is that, if they're going to say anything about me, is that I made a difference. And it doesn't really matter, I don't have to make X number. As long as I made a difference in one person's life and they go, you know what, because Laurence existed, or I had one interaction with Laurence, or maybe never met me because they heard me in a podcast or something, that one line changed the direction of my life, I will be very happy. And that's all I really care about. I do care about this profession, but I can't control this on the direction of its own. It's a massive yacht or a cruise ship, and I can only make some impact. And I found my impact is best served by helping individual chiropractors succeed, and hoping that those individuals will become leaders, the future leaders of this profession. That's my hope. And that's, I hope that the profession will continue to thrive. But I think we're at a crossroad. And we're at a crossroad that we need to make a decision on. And do we want chiropractic to thrive, or do we just happy to carry on as we are? And if we keep on carrying on the way we are, I do believe that we're going to hit some very shallow shores, and it could be detrimental to the profession. Again, just my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to be able to leave an impact, and I understand what you're saying about leaving a legacy, because in 100 years' time, no one's going to know our names. Well, they're saying that, look at DD Palmer and BJ Palmer, look at what a legacy they left behind, and how that continues to shape the healthcare of society as a whole. One last question. We ask this to majority of our guests, and it always brings out something gold. And I want you to take a second to think about this one. If you could put a message on a billboard outside every chiropractic college in the world, what would it say? We're talking about grassroots, and we're talking about, you want to make an impact, and the best way you can make an impact is speaking to the chiropractors and getting them becoming leaders in their own communities. But what would you put on the grassroots of our profession, which is the students? So what would that message on that billboard say?
I have like couple of messages that go through my mind, but let's go with the one that if it's going to go to every chiropractic, college and university, then I think the most important thing would be human first, chiropractor second. And what I mean by that is, like, let's learn to become better human beings, and let's not put our chiropractic title as be the first thing that of our interactions or what our patients feel. I've always focused on just being, I never used the title doctor, not because I don't think I deserve it or anything. I just felt that I wanted my patients to know that I wasn't their doctor. I was their friend. I was their family member. I was there to take care of them. So I think human first, chiropractor second would be what I would put in front of chiropractors in general, and chiropractic universities. If I was put these billboards around chiropractors, then let's go back to the conversation we had about AI. It's like, the train is leaving, get on it. So that's what I would say.
I love that. Laurence, thank you so much. What you've shared today is it's not just strategy, it's a leadership. The way you're thinking about AI in the future, the way you build real transformation into your work, and your commitment to helping chiropractors rise without losing who they are. That's really what this profession needs right now. So for everyone listening, if you want to learn more about Align and Amplify, or get involved in Laurence's upcoming seminars, programs, coaching, or retreats, all the details for that will be in the show notes. And if you're new here, or you've been following along and you're ready to go deeper, make sure to subscribe to our podcast. That's the Clinic Scale Podcast. You can find us on all major podcast platforms. We drop new episodes every single week. And you can also opt into our newsletter for bonus tools and insights, and follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just look up Andy Kurt for behind the scenes content and clinic growth tips. Laurence, really appreciate you, mate. You're doing
Thanks for
big
having me on.
work right now in our profession, and I'm excited to see your new AI platform that you're creating. And I know this conversation will spark something in a lot of people listening. So thanks again, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for everything you're doing and what you're doing for the profession. And I really hope the success that chiropractors will have because of listening to your podcast.
Thanks again.